Welcome everyone. Jeff Jensen, Director of Community Programs with Trees Forever. I'd like to welcome you to our Stewards of the Beautiful Land webinar focused on urban conservation. Just a reminder, you should be able to see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. And so the way that you can interact with us is through the questions tab on your GoToWebinar little, what's the word I'm looking for? Brad, help me out here. The control panel.
Let's call it control panel.
Perfect, perfect. So let's get into our talk for today. Just a couple of reminders. This is the Stewards of the Beautiful Land landing page that we have on the Trees Forever website. There we go. And a reminder that we have our Facebook group as well. And so pay attention there. We will have some of our field days beginning tomorrow, and so stay tuned for that Facebook group to see some pictures and then to chime in on some different things. Bree Hull is the one who leads that, and so we thank her for interacting and engaging with you all. So make use of that. Here is our agenda for today. We're going to talk briefly about some upcoming webinars, upcoming field days, and then get right into our featured presentation. As I mentioned, we do have some upcoming webinar dates, so please get these on your calendar. We have June 25th, July 9th, July 23rd, and then our 2 August dates there. Again, these are all over the noon hour. They will be recorded and put on our YouTube page, but there's no better time than the present, or pardon me, to participate live to ask questions to some of those different presenters. Our next one on June 25th is going to be pesticides and roadsides. Our very own Bree Hull is going to be with the Good Neighbor group, and they're going to talk about pesticides, roadsides, what you need to know. And then in July, after the 4th, a special guest, Phil Kerr with the USGS here. He's going to be talking about Iowa's glacial history, and his talks are always fascinating. So be sure to get registered for those webinars. And then it's field day season, the beautiful weather. We want to get outside, and so the first opportunity is tomorrow in Cass County, where we'll have an intro to prairie at Cold Springs County Park, 6 o'clock start time. Our very own Brad Riphagen will be part of that. And then this Saturday, come out to Goat Prairie, where there's going to be a hike and a plant ID at the Yellow Forest State Park. That's going to be a 10 o'clock start time up there in Alameda County. Then we have June 23rd. That's going to be over in Marshall County, invasive species removal. So come on, get your hands dirty, grab your gloves. We're going to do some invasive species removal at the Grammar Grove Wildlife Area. And then up in Cerro Gordo County, Mason City, come join us. I'll be out there. We're going to be looking at prairie and perennials. We're going to be playing perennial bingo. Yeah, that's going to be fun, and there will be prizes. So that's going to be Lime Springs Nature Center, Mason City, 5:30 start time. So be there or be square for a lot of our upcoming field days here in June. And then in July, we'll be doing it all over again in those same counties, Cass, Alameda, Marshall, and Cerro Gordo. Just a reminder, here are upcoming field days that are listed out for those counties. If you visit the Trees Forever Stewards of the Beautiful Land landing page on our website, you'll be able to see what each one of those field days is about, and then certainly get registered for it. Again, just a reminder, you should be able to hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. So the way that you'll interact with us is through the questions tab, and we'll be checking that throughout the presentation as we go here and answering questions as we can. And if we can't, we'll certainly get them answered at the end from Ann. Speaking of Ann, let's get into our presentation here with urban conservation. Brad Riphagen, take it away.
All right, so and I'm gonna introduce you, and then you can fill in the blanks because I don't have all the blanks, and then we'll let you take over from there. And so basically, for those of you who don't know Ann, she's an urban conservationist. Okay, here I have to read this. I'm sorry, folks, but I have to put my glasses on. Urban conservationist with Iowa Department of Land and Iowa Department Ag and Land Stewardship, excuse me, IDALS. And she's out of the Des Moines office, as Jeff said, works with private landowners and communities of all sizes to implement urban water quality management practices from a design concept. So this is all the way from just planning it to putting it on the ground, to construction. So she has a number of partnerships she works through. We're trying to build one a little bit more with them as well. They've been helping us out with some communities we've been working with, but she works closely with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, Iowa Economic Development Authority, and many other government agencies. And so with that, Miss Ann, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you again for that kind introduction. My name is Ann Sita, and I'm an urban conservationist with the Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. I focus most of my efforts on Southwest Iowa, but because there are so many projects in Central Iowa, some of my duties and responsibilities lead me right here into the Des Moines Metro. So, but I am not alone in this endeavor. I have a group of urban conservationists across the state that assist me. Our statewide urban conservationist retired at the end of February, and that position remains vacant for the time being. But I am accompanied by Amy Bauska, who covers Central Iowa, or Eastern Iowa, excuse me, from the Missouri border to the Minnesota border, kind of that eastern third of Iowa. And she is located in the Johnson County Soil and Water Conservation District office. Caitlin Wagner is located in the Buena Vista Soil and Water Conservation District office in Storm Lake. And then Jennifer Welch is located in the Polk County Soil and Water Conservation District office located up there in Ankeny. So just a little summary of what we're going to cover today. The Urban Conservation Program, a little bit of an overview. Sometimes the term urban conservation is maybe sometimes misunderstood. It is different than urban farming. It's different than urban agriculture, but we are managing stormwater in the urban setting. So we're going to talk about different types of stormwater practices. We're going to go over some examples of practices that we've already constructed and that are functioning. And I think that's maybe the best way to describe it to the audience is through photographs. We try to take before and after photos. Today I'll be sharing with you mostly after photos, and it kind of gives people an idea of the possibility. You can kind of look at these practices and think big, and we can get together and see if we can make it happen, especially if there's an opportunity for potential funding. Not all projects result in us being able to cost share and fund them, but we sure do our best to try to get communities and independent homeowners hooked up with the funding that is available. And then even if funding isn't available, we still have services that we can provide independent homeowners and communities of all sizes. So describing urban conservation a little bit more, this is really, I think, my only slide that seems to be a little techie, so to speak. The intent is for us to manage water quality, to improve water quality through the management of the stormwater in urban settings. We focus our efforts on managing rain events that are 1.25 inches. So what's magic about 1.25 inches? 85% to 90% of the rain events in Iowa are 1.25 inches or less. So that's our focus. Do we strive to manage larger rain or storm events? Absolutely. We try to go up to a 100-year storm event, but then that is based upon, you know, if funding is available by a community or a city, and also if there's space available. Sometimes space limits how big we can make projects. So think of it in sense of, you know, if we want to build a pond that's going to manage 1.25 inches rainfall, it's going to be a much smaller footprint than a pond that we need to design to manage a 100-year storm event. So we try to get up to the 100, but there are some restrictions. Our guiding principles is the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual that is actually housed under the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. So we work in close collaboration with the DNR, and that just gives you the link to the website of where you can go to see that Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. I'm going to estimate that it's close to 1,000 pages long. Many, many chapters of all different kinds of practices that can be designed to help manage your stormwater. So why is stormwater management so important? You know, stormwater is one of those things that you don't really think of, right, until there's too much of it. But even in our mostly rural, agricultural-based state of Iowa, there is a tremendous amount of impermeable surface getting constructed and installed across the whole entire state. Many of us have experienced larger storm events that have led to a lot of erosion, a lot of flooding. So, you know, it kind of is, stormwater management is to kind of counteract the impermeable surfaces that are being added into our communities, but also to prepare and be able to manage those larger storm events that we seem to be happening quite frequently. So who are our stormwater partners? We can start with homeowners and landowners. There's something for everybody when it comes to stormwater management. Other partners that we work with, as Jeff described in my bio, I work with the Iowa Finance Authority, and they are under the Iowa Economic Development Group. Of course, we work with, in collaboration here within the Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. We have great funding partners and technical partners with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, primarily through their state revolving fund or their non-point source program. There's REAP dollars sometimes available on different projects that we try to use as the cost share, or try to direct people to REAP funding if that is available for their particular projects. And then, of course, we work with all 100 conservation districts across the state of Iowa. How do we do this stormwater management, and how do we do our urban conservation program? As in the description, we really start when we go out, especially this time of year, and we meet with, whether it be cities, communities, homeowners, and we try to put together a particular concept of what is the city or the community trying to achieve, or what is the homeowner trying to achieve. We look at drainage area, we look at space available, we look at funding available, and this is just one of the examples. I believe this was in Hudson, Iowa, who did recently receive some cost share money from the Iowa Department of Agriculture, but that's what you see in the background there. So here's a list of all the different stormwater practices that are available and recognized through this Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. They can be as simple as rain gardens on independent homeowners' properties. They can be bioretention cells. We're going to talk about soil quality restoration and how important that can be. Permeable pavers, or sometimes people see those as brick streets, so to speak. We will also talk about stormwater wetlands, and stormwater wetlands is what we would consider maybe our premier stormwater management practice. What do I mean by premier? It is, in most cases, it is the lowest costing stormwater practice that gets the largest amount of water quality benefit. But not everywhere can have a wetland, so it's not practical in some applications. But where it is practical, we like to install wetlands whenever possible. The same thing with wet ponds, and of course, those are pretty easy to get up to that 100-year storm event. Throughout most of our practices, you're going to see examples of native landscaping being used, and I'll show some photos of some bioswales and explain a little bit about what those are, and then even rainwater harvesting. And I believe there is an example in the slide presentation of rainwater harvesting right on the Trees Forever headquarters campus in Marion. So I'm going to start off with the most simplistic stormwater management practice, and those are rain gardens. Rain gardens really can be installed anywhere, but it's quite easy for independent homeowners to install rain gardens. What is a rain garden exactly? It's really quite a simple location or a practice that can be located anywhere in a particular homeowner's yard. The profile is made up of maybe 6 to 8 inches of amended soil is what is what the foundation of a rain garden is. That soil is made up of typically 75% sand, maybe 15% topsoil, and then the remainder of the percentage is in compost. That amended soil gets mixed up, and then we will come out and try to calculate and make a determination of how big people's rain gardens need to be in order to manage their stormwater. And then we determine what the ponding depth is of a particular rain garden. Most of them are 6 to 9 inches deep. And then over the top of that is mulch. And then of course we encourage people to put in native landscaping or native plants over the top of that mulch. So we're gonna show some examples. This slide, I'm gonna take a little bit of time at this point and just kind of pause a little bit, because everybody is gonna want to copy or maybe take a photo or, you know, copy and paste this particular website. The Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership Group does an absolutely fantastic job of guiding independent homeowners and communities through how you can select an area to build your rain garden. And it gives you all kinds of tools on how to build it, how to design it, how to estimate your materials. So I'm going to explain to you. When you go to that website, like I said, it will explain how to go through and find the best location for your rain garden. Most of the time it's intercepting downspouts, which I'll describe in the photos that we're going to look at here shortly. Drainage areas are key, and your drainage area on your independent homeowner property would be your impermeable surfaces. We're talking your roof and driveway typically. Like I said, there's a place on the website where you can estimate the materials. There's instructions on how to do it step by step. And there's even some example layouts. Sometimes people get to the end and they're like, well, we don't even know what kind of plants, where to begin. There's examples for how to select your native plants for each particular location, whether it be a sunny spot for your rain garden or a more shaded spot. Here's some examples of some rain gardens that independent homeowners have installed. So on the left-hand side is a duplex, and that one is located in Glenwood, Iowa. This was part of the Iowa Economic Development Green Streets program. And in order for the developer to receive the funding to build low-income housing in Southwest Iowa flood relief counties, they have to agree to manage the stormwater, the 1.25-inch rainfall. And so in this particular example, those downspouts are intercepted and then made into they funnel into that rain garden that was constructed in between the driveways for that duplex. And then on the right-hand side is a typical urban rain garden right after a rainfall. You can see the water in the rain garden there. This one was a great project in Charles City. This rain garden is one of the larger ones, and this one was funded in 2022 and just finished construction in 2024. This is located in the Edible Arboretum in Charles City. And if you're not familiar with the Edible Arboretum, it's a FEMA buyout. So the whole entire city square was purchased as a FEMA buyout due to frequent flooding and then sold to the city of Charles City. And they transformed the whole entire city block into an edible arboretum. I believe there's close to 30 different nut and fruit bearing species within this city park. And then they've used this city park as a demonstration on how to incorporate stormwater management into your parks, in communities, but also something that homeowners can do. Also in this photo, you'll see a permeable pathway around the rain garden. Some of them can be planted to turf, some of them are left with gravel, and some of them we'll see in later slides are more brick or pavers. This is an example of a larger site. So this is on the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Red Oak in Southwest Iowa. This is where the downspouts off this large structure or this large building in the background is intercepted. and those downspouts come right into this large rain garden that's right on the fairgrounds in Red Oak. Then when you go into bigger drainage areas, that's when you get into bioretention cells. Bioretention cells are by and large the largest, most popular stormwater practice that we have across the state of Iowa. A couple of these examples are just different applications. So the upper left-hand corner would be bioretention cells that are built in right-of-ways to intercept road water. On the upper right-hand side, we'll have some closer pictures of that one, but that one is located again in the right-of-way, but this is in a more suburban setting. And then the bottom pictures are examples of bioretention cells located in different parking lots. The lower left-hand corner is a parking lot in Denison, and that would be in Crawford County. And the lower right-hand side would be the library located in Waukee, right here in the Des Moines Metro. So what exactly is a bioretention cell? Like I said, this one is a larger drainage area. So there's actually a subdrain that's on the bottom of each and every bioretention cell. And that subdrain typically ties into a stormwater sewer system, or in communities that don't have stormwater sewer systems, it can daylight, and so it can discharge on the surface. It has a series of aggregate or rock that is underneath the surface. And that would be like probably 9 to 12 inches of aggregate, depending upon the storage of the stormwater that you need to have. And then you'll have anywhere from 18 to 30 inches of amended soil on top of the aggregate. So the 18 to 30 inches of amended soil is again 75% sand, 15% topsoil, and then the rest of it is compost to create and incorporate a higher level of organic matter. Then on top of that amended soil, you'll get 2 to 3 inches of mulch, and then of course native planting on top of it. Bioretention cells, and I'll show you in the examples ahead, I'll explain to you how they have an overflow pipe, and then they also have access to clean out those subdrains. So here in this example, this is the Indianola downtown square. This was a huge project that was completed in 2023, and it looks gorgeous to this day. So you can see kind of from the sides, you can see access, the stormwater off the street accesses into this bioretention cell. It goes through a sump, and that settles out the dirt, the debris, the heavy solids, so to speak. And then the stormwater flows into the rest of this bioretention cell. If you look real close, you can see the access to the clean out drain in the picture on the right-hand side. There was a local business that contacted the city and said, hey, we'd like to put a patio over the top of this bioretention cell. Is that something that's permittable? And we said as long as they had access to clean out any trash or debris that got underneath it, they were more than welcome to do that. This example is one that's been around for a little while longer. So for any of you that live in Southeast Iowa, this is in downtown Ottumwa. And here you can see where the water comes in from the street, and the solids settle out, or the leaves even in the photo settle out. But then that large circular structure in the center, that would be your overflow. So in heavy storm events, you know, say it's designed, maybe when you get to a 50-year storm event, the water may overflow into that structure. And that's just to keep it from overflowing over the top. So each and every one of the biocells that we help design will have an overflow structure and then access to clean out that subdrain. I like to include, when I know what the dollar amounts or the cost of these bioretention cells are, I try to include those with the slide, just because that's really what communities want to know. Like, how much are we talking to construct these? Because, you know, that's important for a small community to understand for budgetary purposes. In this particular one, even though it was a 2019 project, they did 6 bioretention cells for roughly $66,000. But I should have finished saying, even though it was a 2019 project, the cost of a bioretention cell for this size has stayed pretty steady, to be quite honest. Even more of our recent ones, for those that are about this size, usually run between $10,000 and $15,000. Here's another example of an application of bioretention cells that were completed in the downtown square in Bloomfield. So again, still in southeast Iowa. The photo on the left is the before photo, and the photo on the right is after they completed a permeable paver project on the sidewalk, which there's another photo coming up that gives you a closer look of that. And then the bioretention cell on the right-hand side. You can see the small white structures, and those are within the bioretention cell, and those are providing clean out access to that subdrain. Couple more examples. Bioretention cell on the left side is in Storm Lake, and there's a tremendous amount of bioretention cells located in the city of Storm Lake. You can see in the far background the actual lake itself. So it's really important for these bioretention cells, you know, during that first flush of stormwater coming off the street, it's the sand, it's the grit, it's the oil, it's debris, it's trash. It falls into that sump, or oftentimes we refer to them as the rain guardian, which is a brand name, but that settles out the dirt before it gets into the bioretention cell, because we don't want that extra dirt to kind of plug up the amended soil. And then it filters out all that sediment before it discharges to the lake. The lower right-hand side is located in Sioux City, and this is Chris Larson Park, and that was recently completed as well. This one sits between Interstate 29 and the Missouri River. I almost called it the Des Moines River, but it would be the Missouri River in Sioux City. This one was constructed, most of it was done in 2022, 2023 during the drought. And we crossed our fingers for a good portion of that period, but lo and behold, those natives are pretty hardy, and they came through that drought, of course, with the assistance of the city of Sioux City, but the project looks really great. It's a really great trail system that goes through Chris Larson Park, and it's just such nice amenities to that community. Here's a big project. Here's one in the Market District in downtown Des Moines. So this area sits kind of close to the confluence of the Des Moines and Raccoon River in Des Moines. The whole entire project was designed to have 82 bioretention cells, as you can see in the right-of-way in the photo included. These 82 bioretention cells in this newly developed area is set to manage more than 1 million gallons of water during an 1.25-inch rainfall. So this next photo I'm going to show you, here's a bigger aerial view where you can see those bioretention cells are first installed in that first street, in the first street that was part of the development. It's actually 2nd Street, and you can see the Des Moines River in the background in downtown Des Moines. So these bioretention cells are being constructed really ahead of the development that's taking place in the area. Most of the time, we have an area get developed, and then the stormwater practices are the last things installed or built, because we want to keep them clean and we don't want them to get filled up with debris during the construction process. In this particular project, these bioretention cells were built in the right-of-ways ahead of the development. And I believe it's to be more of an amenity that the stormwater piece is already being managed when developers wanted to come in and finish up the area. So it's a great project in downtown Des Moines, and I believe there will be some capability for some of these bioretention cells to intercept some roof water off the buildings. So it'd be roof water and street water as well. Here's a closer up view of those bioretention cells that are located in Johnston. and those are in the right of way, where you can see how the water goes into the bioretention cell from the street. And of course, planted in natives, which we like to see. Here's a different design, and this gives you a little bit of a picture, or I should say a different application, because this one is built in a neighborhood, and this one was part of an Iowa economic development. It was the derecho program that took place in Lynn County. So that the right-hand side shows the finished project, but that center picture gives you an example of what that subdrain looks like. And then that far green structure is your overflow pipe in the event that you get a heavy flood or a heavy storm event. Few more examples I have. Bioretention cells that were installed in downtown West Union, and then these structures called runnels. So runnels is where the water from the street is intercepted, and it's kind of like a little stream that channels the water towards the permeable pavers in that photo on the right-hand side. A different application, this was at the Aldrich Elementary School in Cedar Falls. That project installed 3 bioretention cells, and this is a great example of intercepting stormwater off parking lots. So you can see how they've used that green space in between the parking. And these projects, you know, and I'll explain the Water Quality Initiative funding program, but it's really important, we feel, to incorporate stormwater practices like this in green infrastructure, especially around schools, and where you can get an educational component as well, where you can do public outreach, where a lot of people will see it, and it's just it's a great education tool to do these on school property. Just a few more examples of parking lot bioretention cells, and I like to show all corners of the state. These are great examples that were completed in Burlington, and these were a little bit larger bioretention cells, so the cost was a little bit higher. The funding was available in 2021, so they've been recently completed. This example is a bioretention cell that is located at the hospice location in Washington County. And I included this one because bioretention cells, you know, have a larger drainage area, so they're a little bit more expensive. And like I said, you either have to have a storm sewer to tie in the subdrain, or you can daylight it. But this almost gives you an example of what it might look like in a neighborhood. So I felt like this was a good example to share. And then this project also included soil quality restoration, which is a good segue into that next practice. So soil quality restoration, the bottom photos gives you a good example of what a before and after, or I should say a during and then after photo looks like. So soil quality restoration is doing deep tine aeration on existing lawns, or it is conditioning new soil that's going to be turned into turf, grass, or lawns, depending upon if it's in a new development. So when I say deep tine aeration, typically when you aerate your own lawns, it's maybe like a 2 to 3 inch deep aeration. Whereas when we talk deep tine aeration, we're talking like 4 to 6 inches. So typically this is special equipment that you can either rent, or in most cases, it's available through contractors or landscaping companies that will come out and deep tine aerate it. In this photo, it's a picture of a park in the city of West Des Moines. They had applied for 50% cost share funding to do soil quality restoration. So over this soccer field that's in a city park, they went through it and they did the aeration of 4 to 6 inches, and then you come back over the top and you apply a 1/2 inch of compost over the top of it. You don't want to put too much compost over the top. More is not always better. In this case, too much compost can almost be too rich and can burn your grass. So you just come over it with a 1/2 inch. There's a lot more certified compost suppliers across the state of Iowa, and as urban conservationists, we can help you find compost suppliers. In this example, a 4-acre plot of soccer field, it was an estimated cost of $30,000, and then we cost shared 50% of it, so it was only $15,000 expense to the city of West Des Moines. Here's just a list of cities across the state of Iowa that I know have incorporated soil quality restoration programs. You can see the list and read them for yourselves. Like the Edible Arboretum in Charles City, that one incorporated soil quality restoration. Soccer fields in Bondurant incorporated it, and then that example of the playground in West Des Moines. Many of those suburbs and cities, for example, Polk City, Johnston, those programs were a 50% cost share. Sometimes cities paid for the entire program, so it was no expense to the homeowner. But in several cities across central Iowa especially, it's a 50% cost share program. And now we move into permeable pavers, or those brick streets as some people call them. Permeable pavers, the application for them are typically on city streets that don't have a lot of heavy traffic. So it wouldn't be perhaps like it would not take place on a highway or in a downtown area where there's a lot of traffic. It's very popular in parking spots. In some cases, you can apply to your Soil and Water Conservation District office as an independent homeowner and perhaps get 50% cost share for putting in permeable pavers for driveways or sidewalks. And patios are an application of it as well. So I'm going to show you a few examples. This is just a cross section. It's much like a bioretention cell where there's a subdrain, and then there's also different layers of aggregate or rock before you get to your permeable paver or your bricks on top. Here's the downtown square in Bloomfield again, showing the picture on the right where they incorporated permeable pavers to kind of dress up their downtown sidewalks. So we would help them in collaboration with an engineering firm calculate what the drainage area is, so how much water is maybe coming off the top of the roof of these buildings, or I think in most cases in Bloomfield it was the sidewalk water that would flow into the permeable pavers on the sidewalk. But in some applications you can figure out how to calculate the roof water if there's enough space available for the permeable pavers. These two examples, we recently completed permeable pavers in a downtown alley in Clarinda in southwest Iowa, and then some fancy permeable paved sidewalk at the Clay County Fairgrounds in Spencer. And then of course, Trees Forever headquarters in Marion was a great example that was funded with funding from 2021. And this is the photo where I spotted the rain harvesting rain barrel in the background, intercepting the downspout off the roof. I'm going to touch on stormwater wetlands and wet ponds. And, you know, just kind of some of the features of a wetland, what makes them so attractive. The water comes into what we call a forebay, F-O-R-E, forebay, and that's where the sediment settles out before it goes through a series of meandering channels back and forth, and that's just to increase the length of time that the water or the pollutants in this case are in the wetland and give the pollutants adequate time to settle out. There's shallow portions of the shallow pools in a wetland, and then there's also deep pools. The shallow pools allow for vegetation, the deep pools allow for diverse habitat, and it allows for sediment to settle out. And then of course the outlet structure, as the water meanders through the wetland, then it discharges, whether it be into a ditch or into a river or just further downstream in the watershed. So this example of a stormwater wetland is located in Webster City. This one is really quite attractive because it's right along the Boone River Bike Trail. And then you can see the native plants along the wetland, bank of the wetland. This is a very attractive wetland if anybody has the opportunity. Reedland, I believe, is in Bremer County, if I'm saying that right. I'm from West Central Iowa, so I always think, is it Bremer or Bremer? But I think it's Bremer County. It just gives you an idea. The whole project was $330,000. The Department of Agriculture supplied $70,000. And this is stormwater that comes from the city of Reedland. And then, of course, there's a trail system around the wetland that allows people to take in the beauty of it, and it provides really diverse habitat. And the last time I was there, there was, there's always waterfowl that fly in to utilize the wetland as well. This one is a recent project just completed in Perry in Dallas County, just west of Des Moines. And this one is a wetland that sits along Highway 141. You can see it from your car. It's a two-sectioned wetland divided by a city street. And it's a large drainage area. 314 acres of urban drainage go into this wetland and is managed. This is a Center Point project. And this one, I have not been able to see myself, but these photos were supplied by Amy Bauska in our Eastern Iowa Urban Conservation Office. Center Point is located northwest of Cedar Rapids in Lynn County. And this one is really close to an assisted living location, and that helps manage the stormwater from that location. This one is an urban wetland within the city of Grimes. This one is actually in a city park. We retrofitted a dry basin into a wetland in this neighborhood city park in Grimes, and every time I have been there, and I've been there frequently because it's close to my house, I always see kids out there fishing and utilizing the wetland. It's just a great example of things that you can do in an urban setting. And then surrounding the entire wetland, of course, is planted in natives. I have a few more examples of a wet pond, and this one is in Schleswig, Iowa. This was in Crawford County, and this one is located on a golf course. So the photo on the left-hand side is the before photo, and then, whoopsie, on the right-hand side is what it looks like afterwards. So definitely improves water quality. It manages a lot of stormwater drainage, but if you're a golfer, unfortunately, now it's created a bit more of a water hazard. Not to leave out Northwest Iowa, this is a great example of a before and after picture in Sioux Center. On the left-hand side, it was just kind of a wet spot. And then the city of Sioux Center received funding from the Department of Agriculture, and then they installed a wet pond on the right-hand side. You can see it. And it manages up to 72% of the 100-year storm event. So during the large storm events this previous summer in Northwest Iowa, as I understand it, the city of Sioux Center did not experience flooding in this area because this pond was already built and it was able to manage the storm. I'm going to keep going through and describe some of the native landscaping and why it's so important. I imagine that most people on this webinar or that watch this later understand the benefits of having natives. You know, the first year that you plant native plants, what you don't see is the large root system that is growing under the ground. And this particular slide gives you that example of how large and how long the root structure is on native plants. So the first year I planted natives in my own garden, I thought, oh my goodness, here I'm an urban conservationist and I have blown it. Like, I don't see anything that first growing season. And then the second season, lo and behold, I had more natives than I really needed. I had clearly planted too thick. So I went through my garden and was trying to thin it out a bit. And when I pulled out some of the natives that were maybe 8 to 10 inches tall, the root structure was in some cases up to 24 inches long underneath. So that just gives you an example. It provides great habitat. It's a great pollen for the pollinators. It provides infiltration of the stormwater to more easily infiltrate into the soil. There's just so many benefits from natives. And so we try to incorporate natives in all of our stormwater practices wherever practical. In these cases, of course, rain gardens and bioretention cells, it's really nearly a must. In some bioretention cells, people can put them back into turf grass, but we really encourage people to plant them into natives. Just a couple slides here for examples of bioswales. You can see on the left-hand side was a channel that was cutting through a particular community. It's very close to the storm sewer or a water main in this case. And so the project was to amend the soil and think of it almost like having a grass waterway, very similar to our ag counterparts. And then this is an example of natives in a bioswale in Kyron, again in Crawford County, in Memorial. It's on the Memorial Park Trail, bike trail. Just some more natives along a bike trail located in Polk County. This would be along the edge of Easter Lake. And then this is Sugar Creek in West Des Moines. This was a large project, and this was just as the project was getting started, lots of development going on in the background. Here was an in-progress step of the stream restoration project. Different stone toe protection along the edge of the stream. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like after we've incorporated the native planting. It's really important. It helps stabilize the slopes, especially when they're still somewhat steep like this along different streams. Here's an alternative to native seed. We have done some experimentation with our partners at Polk County to do native sod. The native sod was supplied by a company in Minnesota. It's actually purchased from the supplier in Minnesota. And then you can see where the sod is put down, the native sod. And they say in some cases the cost is definitely more than seed, but it's instant. And sometimes that prevents a whole lot of management or risk of erosion until the seed is established. And here's one more example of what native sod looked like at the Public Works building in Polk County. So I think I got about 10 minutes, but I'm gonna try to wrap this up. How can people get the funding? Cities, communities, nonprofits, units of government, soil and water conservation districts. You can apply for 50% cost share funding. The pre-application process starts in September. And if you're approved, you move on to a full application submittal in February. And then the funding is allocated in March. So if communities and cities are hoping to incorporate maybe some of these stormwater practices that I've discussed, you can reach out to your urban conservationist in your area. And I can provide you, if you're not sure who that person is, you can contact me and I'll set you up and get you in contact. These projects, you would apply in September. The funding would be allocated in March of 2026. Then you have 18 months to finish those projects. So you would have until December of 2027 to get those projects completed. In 2025, we awarded 14 projects for a total of $2.7 million of cost share. This whole entire program got started in 2015, and we have allocated over $17 million worth of funding. And then when you attach that with the cost share and you leverage private donations, those projects expanded upwards to $41 million worth of projects have been completed. Here's a rundown of the 2025 recipients, and I wanted to include this just to give you an idea. You don't have to be a large community to receive this money. In fact, we are constantly looking at maps and projects and figuring out what counties and communities have never done stormwater management. And we're really trying to establish our footprint, so to speak, in those counties and communities that have never done it before, and to show them how these projects can provide water quality improvement. If you can design them to get, multiple, maybe even up to a 5-year or 10-year storm event, it can provide flood protection, it can provide an amenity to the community, and in some cases, when you get into wetlands and ponds, it can provide fish habitat, and it can provide recreational opportunities. So this just gives you a list of all the different types of communities, from community colleges to small towns, like in the case of Dunlap, which is in Harrison County in western Iowa. Mount Air was a new community to the program, first project in Ringgold County. And then there's also the large suburbs here in Des Moines as well. So the WQI program is non-discriminatory. We focus our efforts really on all sizes of communities and cities. And then I just have a couple more slides. This one touches on potential funding sources for independent private landowners. You can contact your local soil and water conservation district, and you can apply for what is called REAP-P funding. It's a 50% cost share, and the icons that I included on here are examples of all the different practices as independent private land and homeowners, how you can apply for that funding. You can apply, in most cases, rain gardens and native landscaping are the most popular for private landowners, just because of the low cost and the small amount of space. But depending upon what, the size of your drainage area, some people have applied for cost share funding for your permeable pavers, to put those in, like I said, for driveways, sidewalks, or patios. So there are options for private independent landowners. So what are the next steps? To contact your urban conservationist. We come out and we will help, whether it be cities or private landowners. We'll come out and we'll visit, and we'll put together a concept plan. We'll talk about what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and what we can recommend based upon the drainage area. In the case of cities and communities with larger projects, of course, you'll need to incorporate the assistance of an engineering firm. And then, but we will walk hand in hand with them and review the 30, 60, 90% design plans. We'll work through the calculations. We talk about maintenance. We really do it start to finish. We will be there during the construction phase. And then, of course, we have to certify completion for projects that incorporate our 50% cost share funding. So with that said, here is my contact information, my phone number, email address, and then there's this urban conservation at iowaagriculture.gov. That's an email that people can submit their request to, or they can request to be added to our newsletter that goes out, or our important email that goes out maybe, we probably send 6 to 8 out a year, just alerting people to deadlines and the services that we can provide. And then I also encourage you to check out the cleanwateriowa.org website. And that has pictures of all the projects we've ever completed since 2015. There might be projects in a community near you, or it also gives you ideas of maybe what a neighboring community has done, or maybe a community that is comparable in size that you might want to take a look at, or you might be interested in completing yourself. So with that said, that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to take questions.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ann. Thanks so much. And we do have a question here that Craig posted for us. So again, just a reminder, if you're wanting to ask a question, please type it into the questions box and we'll make sure Ann gets it presented to her, whether she can, I'm sure she can answer them all too. So anyhow, here's your question, Ann. Who is typically in charge of cleaning drains and doing other maintenance for bioretention cells?
Sure. So typically cleaning drains on bioretention cells is just really the public works or maintenance within the city. And it's really just, those sub drains are usually like 6 or 8 inches, depending upon the size. And it's just flushing them out, basically. It's just, taking a vac truck and a hose and flushing them out.
Okay.
In some situations, in small communities, sometimes people will take ownership, so to speak, of bioretention cells. You might have a master gardeners club, or maybe you have a 4-H club, library club. Sometimes people will take ownership and be like, all right, we're going to do the maintenance on these bioretention cells, which is, pretty minimal, because if you've planted them to natives, that really cuts down on the maintenance of it. But then in larger communities where you have designated public works, in some towns, the parks department will also do the maintenance on the bioretention cells. So great question.
Yeah, it was, and that's, for me, that was a question I had too. Is there do you have a frequency of something like that? I'm guessing it's dependent on how many rain events and so forth you have, but I didn't know if there's some sort of
Right.
plan.
So the frequency, is really just almost like your own landscaping in on your own property. I would say, typically spring and fall, it would be very typical. But if you have larger rain events, sometimes then you have to go and maybe clean out the sump where you have the dirt and the debris collect.
Okay.
It also depends what size of your drainage area is. So I would think probably no more than monthly.
Well, I was going to say there was some cool examples of projects there. I do have a or for me and maybe others, I don't know. So you were talking about soil quality restoration.
Yeah.
Why would somebody do that? What is the value of doing that as a water quality practice?
Yeah, I think I described how to do it, but not maybe why to do it. So it increases the organic composition of your soil. So in most cases, people that do soil quality restoration, you will need minimal fertilizer from that point for several years on. I know some people have done soil testing and they have found that then they didn't have to fertilize, maybe not at all, or definitely not as much. So in the case of the soccer field and city parks, cities can recoup the cost of that soil quality restoration just because the organic composition increases, and then that's utilized by your turf grass on top. It also allows stormwater to infiltrate versus running off. So in the case of developments, and even like my soil here in central Iowa, there's so much clay that stormwater has a tendency to just run off. When you do soil quality restoration, it creates those pores, and it will infiltrate, and it just absorbs like a sponge, and then it holds the moisture, and then you have more organic material. So it's more moisture and less fertilizer, and a beautiful green lawn. So yeah,
That's awesome. I've seen examples before. It's just interesting that we're still thinking about fertilizer, and this is a great way to do that. Perfect.
Yep, it is.
I don't know if I have any. Jeff, do you have any questions? I'm so happy you included the Perry project, because I've been riding by there a lot, and so it's like, what is going on there? And so it's fun to see that kind of stuff and know actually why they're doing it. So just to quickly, did the city approach you folks to do that? Is that a concern they had, or is that?
Yes, yep. I do believe the city of Perry approached us on that one, and that incorporated, they also had some funding available through the DNR, and the city of Perry has also contacted us. They received another award for their downtown. They're putting in permeable pavers in their downtown area. So kind of a part of a cityscape project. So you'll see more stormwater practices being incorporated in the city of Perry. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I was a little surprised on the permeable pavers. One of the examples you had was in an alleyway. And I think of alleyways a lot of time as truck deliveries and just deliveries in general and stuff like that. But then I thought that not all alleys are created equal. And so maybe some of our small towns, that just isn't an issue.
Right, right. Yes. In some applications there, but the heavy traffic that's going through those alleys is maybe, yeah, you know, some delivery trucks, but it's still fairly minimal, and the traffic is going through there very slowly. And so in the case of the city of Indianola, there was an alley where they had frequent garbage trucks and delivery trucks, and they had to set the pavers just a little bit higher, just because over time there was going to be settling. So maybe like a half an inch higher or half an inch above the surface for those permeable pavers, because you expect it to settle just maybe like a quarter inch or so. But yeah, that's a great question, and we experienced that in the city of Indianola. But yeah.
Well, Ann, cannot thank you enough for joining us here today. This was a fantastic presentation. I learned a lot myself. I'm sure other folks did as well. This will be posted on our Trees Forever YouTube page. It'll take us a couple of days to get it edited and posted and whatnot. Want to highlight that if you are over in the Cass County, Atlantic area, tomorrow we're going to be having our first field day with Brad Riphagen. So that'll be a great opportunity. And we'll be here in 2 weeks with our next webinar, Pesticides and Roadsides with Bree Hull. So hope to see you all then. Have a great day and a great week, everyone. Take care now.
Thanks again.